The ideas and concepts presented in this chapter are just entry points to what you'll learn and apply during the course. All of these things will be touched on in greater detail in later chapters and done so in more specific contexts. By the end of this module, you should be able to define technical and professional communication in the workplace environment, recognize the differences between internal and external audiences that would use your documents, recognize different types of genres of technical and professional communication, and identify basic characteristics of technical and professional communication and different types of documents. Now, your textbook defines technical and professional communication in the workplace as communication about complex, highly detailed problems, issues, or subjects in the professional world, which helps audiences visualize and understand information so they can make informed and ethical decisions or take appropriate and safe actions. But your textbook also lets you know that you will see technical communication in your everyday life. Some examples of technical communication are street signs or nutrition information on the boxes of food. Now, technical communication can include lengthier, more complex documents like computer manuals, detailed reports, proposals, or requests for proposals. Now, this slide lists just some of the more common genres you might encounter in the workplace environment: emails and memos, technical definitions and websites, or maybe proposals and reports. Now, it's important to realize that memos are a genre that's appropriate only for internal audiences, but that emails and definitions, manuals and instructions, proposals and reports can all be disseminated to internal and external audiences. Technical and professional documents share and incorporate certain characteristics, and the next slides outline each characteristic and why you should produce documents with these characteristics. For rhetorical, your technical and professional documents help readers solve problems and compel them to act. They can be compelled to buy a product, put together an item, or even submit a proposal for a project. The textbook defines rhetoric as using effective language to influence others' thoughts and actions. The elements of the communications triangle, the writer, the audience, and the subject, should be carefully considered along with the purpose of the document and the context in which the document is written when thinking rhetorically about your writing. For audience-centered, your audience is always an important consideration for technical communicators. The workplace writer's primary purpose is not to express personal feelings or opinions, or simply to transmit factual information. Instead, the workplace writer's purpose is to shape that information to help readers achieve their goals or overcome their problems. It's also important to remember that workplace writers often consider multiple audiences. Primary audiences such as technicians or customers who will use the document. Secondary audiences such as federal regulators who will be guided by the document. And even tertiary audiences such as future employees who may use the document as a model for their own technical writing. Your audience will determine the genre, the style, the level of formality, the level of detail, the document's format, the document design, and the document's length. Now, the technology you have available to write technical and professional documents can influence the way you produce and disseminate information. But you also need to consider the ways your readers will receive information. Their access to internet services and the speed of the internet, whether it's dial-up or broadband, can affect how your readers download documents or view web pages. And in fact, if your documents are created in a format that they can't access because they can't download it, that doesn't help them solve the problem. Presented with inaccurate and incomplete information, accessing unclear and inadequate options, being torn between competing claims and goals, you must make decisions. Technical and professional communicators produce, shape, and convey information to audiences that use that information for various purposes. Writers must seek to provide information that can be used not just effectively and successfully and efficiently, but also safely. Producing documents involves making choices, often with gray areas of ethical consideration. Appropriate professional behavior is not always clear-cut. To aid you in writing a technical professional document, you might need to gather information from libraries, databases, websites, or personal communication with sources. And professional. Professional means that you have clear and accessible information. Accessible in this case means that the documents describe every aspect and provide every detail about the subject that an audience needs, and that the documents follow the conventions of correct grammar, punctuation, usage, and style. Ignoring such conventions often confuses audiences and diminishes the communicator's credibility. In technical and professional communication, perhaps more than in any other kind of communication, form and content must be exact. Visuals may be a new concern for you in technical and professional communication. You need to know that visuals include more than just pictures. Typeface, font style, and arrangement of the text on a page, even white space, are all visual elements in a technical document. And you need not only think about what you are saying to readers, but how the information looks to your readers. You'll make choices about headings, colors, font sizes, font types, placement of visuals, and paper types and bindings. These choices can make your document effective and provide the information your audience needs. And lastly, concise language is a characteristic of workplace writing style. You need to eliminate unnecessary words or phrases in your document to be more efficient. Now let's take a look at an example of how an everyday household product, like a red velvet cake mix box, can show these different characteristics of technical and professional communication. Now this cake box mix shows instructions that use icons that represent the ingredients and the 4 steps needed to make the red velvet cake mix. Your cake box cover shows the final product, but it also shows how you can make the red velvet cookies and what that product would look like. Now your writers knew the audience readers needed directions for how to make the red velvet cake mix. And these instructions are illustrated and written for maybe a more novice audience who might not have a lot of experience with baking. The writer took time in making sure that all the nutrition facts were provided on the side of the box. And the writer might have gathered that information from a food scientist. The information is written concisely. The steps for making the red velvet cake mix are complete but brief, and the writer used as few words as possible without creating confusion by leaving out words or the meaning of what to do. The cake box is even ethical. The writer provided a list of the ingredients in the product so that the users would know if they could not eat the product because of food allergies. And in general, in looking at the cake mix box, the writer selected a red font color for the first word of each step in the instructions. And that word was also in all capital letters, while the rest of the words were lowercase. This was an intentional choice by the writer and shows a great attention to the design of the information. And then when you look at the nutrition information, perhaps the less important information was written in a smaller font size and a smaller location on the box. Now that you've taken a look at an example of a cake mix box that illustrates characteristics of technical communication and professional communication, you're ready to move on in this module